There's like this aspect of the angry Black woman. So when I get angry, I have to think about like, oh my God, are people gonna think I'm like that angry Black stereotypical women? You know?
I started to liken anger to a starter motor in a car. You turn on the key and there's a little motor, and when you flip the key, the little motor gets a spark and it starts turning the other motor, and then the engine goes. And if you run it for a long time, you hear it sort of grinds. You've ever done it where your car's on accidentally and you turn it and it grinds? That's what happens. To me, anger is like a spark. But if it stays beyond there, it's powerlessness. There's probably somebody more often than not in a relationship who might capitulate a little bit more than the other. My guess is that's me in our relationship. I think you think it's you. Is that true? Do you think you make...
No, I actually think it's you.
Yeah, I think I do. Like, it's like, oh, I want Chinese and you want Japanese for dinner. It's like, fine, we'll just do Japanese, right?
I feel like your preference for things is just like whatever. And I tend to be very adamant if I want something.
Right. And what can happen is someone like me in a relationship can very often start feeling like, well, hey, I give things up more often than you. Now I'm going to get resentful. And then resentment becomes anger, and it becomes that way because it's now powerlessness. And in a relationship, we start this pattern, right? Where it's like, well, usually since I'm the one, if I want Chinese food, you want Japanese food, and, 99 times out of 100, we'll then do Japanese food on that time. It could be, one could see from the outside how that person in my shoes could become resentful.
Easily.
But to me, like the thing is that what I've had to work on too is to say, when it is something important to me, I'm going to speak it. And it doesn't mean that I get the important decisions because you get 99 unimportant ones and I get the one. I only get 1% of the time, but it's the big kahuna. It's not that, right? It's that actually, I don't actually feel like I capitulate that much more because I'll actually choose to do it. I don't think we have a lot of anger in our relationship.
I don't think so either. Like, I feel like there's a difference between being mad and being angry. I get mad at you for like small things, but I don't think I actually get angry at you.
Might you call that frustration instead of mad?
Yeah, like I get frustrated.
Or annoyance?
You do a lot of annoying things, little annoying things.
You know what? That really makes me mad that you said that.
But I don't feel like I'm fueling with like anger. Like I almost feel like apart from like social injustice, I don't know in my life if I'm ever angry.
Well, here's this. So we had this conversation. You snapped at me the other day.
Yeah.
Right? And two things happened there. One was we were having a conversation and you didn't like the way it was going. So you were probably starting to feel like I need quiet space at this moment, right?
Correct.
That was your need. And because you weren't having that need met, you then got angry because there was a little powerlessness, like just shut up already, stop, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that would have been this moment of anger that came from, I need to be heard and I'm not being heard. So you felt powerlessness, you snapped. As soon as you snapped, I went into my mode of, now I'm going to be silent and angry. And I was angry because I, at that moment, felt shut down. And I just want to share this because this to me was this sort of beautiful moment in our last week. We had this fight. And ultimately what it came to was that the way my brain was telling me this was that you shut me down by like yelling at me or raising your voice or snapping or however you want to call it. I
literally just was like, please stop.
No,
like,
that's not.
Yes.
Anyway.
It wasn't my quiet voice.
No, it was not your inside voice. You would peak the mic if you used the voice you used, and you would hurt our listeners' ears.
That is not true. That is the way you perceived it.
Okay. Let's go with my version of the story for a moment, because it actually doesn't matter.
Okay.
What happened is that you were angry or you were frustrated, you raised your voice and you snapped, and then I took that as being shut down, and I got angry because I felt ultimately, if I go back to my hypothesis here, I felt powerless. I was speaking, I had something that I thought needed to be heard, and you wanted me to shut up, and guess what I did?
You shut up.
I shut up. I gave up my power.
Which is what I wanted you to do.
So you got the power, I lost my power. Now that's not to say I could have shut up and not lost my power. I could have just simply said, I really don't like it when you speak to me that way. By the way, this was my point, and I'm going to leave it at that and be done. I could have done that and then moved on with my day and not thought about it twice. But I actually let what you had directed at me impact me in a way that you actually didn't do. You should be able to yell at me all day if you wanted to, and I could be like, that poor girl is yelling all the time. She's
And
angry.
just so that you know, I did not yell at you. You have not seen me yell.
And all right, now I'm getting angry.
But I did raise my voice at you.
Okay, there we go. So raising voice. Anyway, so there was definitely a powerlessness, and I got angry about it. I felt unheard. I felt like, and so kind of going back, I think that's one of these things that in a relationship, when do you get angry? Like, is the anger actually something that the other person is doing to you, or is the anger something that you're basically letting them do something, or they're doing whatever they do, because you don't have control over the other person. They do something, and then you just interpret it and make it, this person shutting me down, this person isn't listening to me, this person isn't respecting my needs. Now my needs are unimportant, and that's all yourself.
I really think like the huge part about anger and taking responsibility, like personal, like anger in like relationship wise, is I feel like no one actually can make you angry. People will do what they will do, and you may choose to look at it and be like, you know what, I'm not gonna get angry about that, or you can also choose to be angry.
And if you're in a long-term relationship, and particularly like probably the earlier you get together or the less work you've done on your own patterning, then your partner is going to figure out what triggers you, and they're going to use that when they can, when they need it, when they need, like, I need to shut you down, I need to do whatever I can. It's like, like we even talked about this, like with the way your cousin would kind of like provoke her husband, to get that reaction, because there's something, it's like, we are going to, we're going to challenge each other. The question is, are you going to rise to the challenge or not?
Yeah.
Are you going to be triggered or not? Are you going to say, you can come at me with all your stuff? And, I had this teacher who I stayed very close with, and her husband for a long time was just like, he was really kind of snappy, and it always kind of bothered me the way he spoke to her, but it never bothered her. And it was kind of watching her over these years to realize that his reaction was his reaction. It just didn't impact her. She moved along with her day. And instead of like internalizing it like some people do, right? Some people can internalize it and kind of makes them small. She never shrank one bit. He could have his little temper tantrums, and he would be angry because he had no power. He wanted her to do something a certain way, right?
And she wouldn't do it.
But if she wouldn't do it that way, if she was just living her life, he felt powerless. He yelled. She never raised her voice, never got angry, because why? She never gave up her power. If he wanted her to do something one way and she was like, oh, it doesn't matter to me, she'd do it his way. Otherwise, she'd go, I'm not doing it that way. And then he would be angry and she would have no anger at all. It was beautiful. It's like, this was masterclass in healthy relationships, because people are difficult, right? Your partner is either difficult or you're not difficult. You're actually not, but you have your moments.
I have my moments.
You definitely have your moments. And it's in those moments that in a less healthy relationship, or not even less healthy, that sometimes can sound a little judgmental, but those moments of real discontentment can then start bleeding over into other areas and just how we interact, into our sex life, or into whatever else it is. One of the things that works, I think, well with us is that we have these things, but they don't necessarily come in and spread, because, ultimately because we're really working on our patterning and seeing taking 100% responsibility and agency.
Yeah. But I also tend to feel like I can be good at like not feeling resistance towards a lot of things. And then just like life happens and like small things, like I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna let that go. And then I just have a breaking point, which comes once in a while, where I just like totally have a meltdown and I just cry. And to me, that is like where it's like and I think you experienced this when we were driving, we're just like crying, and I could not stop crying, because I just kind of felt like there was a lot of things where I was just like anger, frustration, and then it just like all of it needs to come out.
And interestingly enough, you in that moment felt totally powerless.
I did. I felt so powerless, and I was like trying to stop crying. I was like, Sarah, stop crying. And I was just like, I could not stop crying, and I just feel like stuff like that happens to me like every couple months. I will have like a total, I don't know what you call it, like breakdown, where just like I don't cry, like I'm not a crier, but like stuff like that will happen where I just cry for like an hour, where I can't really control it or help it, and I just cry it out.
Yeah. In your experience with anger, what's something that you've kind of learned or gained that you can share that's, really helped you with your anger?
Crying would be like what I would offer to everyone. If you're angry, just cry it out. There was a year I paid almost $800 in tickets. Oh. I was like, what is the universe trying to teach me here? And I remember paying for the ticket that I had gotten a month previous to, and I walked outside and there was like the ticket guy giving me a ticket, and I was like, dude, please do not give me a ticket. Like, I've learned my lesson. I think I'd gone over with a minute or two, and he was just like, just be careful. I just sat there and I cried like in my car for like 2 hours, and I was like, how am I going to turn this around? Because I think I'm getting this ticket because either A, I'm careless, and B, I'm just so stressed out. Like, I just had to do something. And I was like, one of the things I was just like, I'm just gonna like scream and cry. And for me, it works. I just like cry for like I did. Yeah. So when things get like, I feel like I'm powerless and I don't know what to do, I just literally cry it out. Yeah. What about you?
I think one of the big things for me is anytime I felt anger at somebody else was to actually turn it back and say, how have I been giving up my power in this situation? Particularly with a romantic partner or a boss, someone who you're intimate with who can be easy to give your power away to. In my first marriage, there was a lot of fighting, and eventually this thing was like, I fought or I got angry because I felt like, and then I got resentful because I lost the fights. Because at a certain point I was like, this can't go on forever. So someone has to give up. And I hate fighting. I hate yelling, and I would give up, and eventually the resentment and this kind of like deep-seated anger. And it was, wait a second, it's just because somebody cares enough to keep fighting and I don't. So I just have to take 100% responsibility that person just cares more, or that I actually needed to find a way to approach something without ever letting the anger be the thing that guided me, but let a centeredness. And it's just kind of like breathing and actually practicing in the other times, because I think so easily we just like, we give away our voice, we give away our power. And sometimes the giving away the power can be thinking like, this thing is really important to me and I'm going to defend what's important to me, and that's sticking up for my power, when actually, if you have this whole laundry list of quasi needs, and if those don't get met, then somehow you're not fulfilled, you've given away your power to your need.
Yeah, true.
So that would be, it's an introspective. It's just testing it, trying it out. If something doesn't feel right, speaking it, and acting long before anger comes.
Yeah,
there's
I so agree with you. If something doesn't feel right, speak about it.
And just before you get angry about it, because once you're angry, now it's charged.
Yeah.
And now you got additional work to do.
Yeah, when it's all like emotional and like it's hard to even bring it up, I think it's just like bring things up as they come.
Yeah, as much as possible. Absolutely. So thanks again for joining us this week on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. And once again, if you have any questions, thoughts, or insight, please make sure to shoot us an email or mention in the comments below. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thanks for joining us.